So I want to ask you a question, and I want you to really think about this because it's going to matter for what we're diving into today. How many times have you blamed yourself for something that actually feels like a character flaw? Like, for instance, rage that comes out of nowhere, and you're just like, hello, where did that just come from? And the anxiety that, just makes zero sense. You can't figure out why you're anxious about anything and what you're anxious about. There's this inability to make even the most simple decisions, like, what do you want to eat today? Should you get dressed today? Should you go to the store? These things that should be easy and you just can't seem to choose. And then there's the motivation, the lack of energy, the absolute crushing fatigue, and the lack of motivation. And you need to do 100 different things, but you just don't have it in you. And you're like, what is wrong with you? Why can't you just get it together? You have cravings you can't control. You pull away from the people you love, even though you are desperate for connection. And in your head, you're like, oh my goodness, why am I such a mess? Why do I fail at everything? Why is this so hard for me when it doesn't seem hard for everyone else? Are these things that you've said to yourself? Because in this video, we're actually going to look at 6 behaviors that most women just chalk up to being weak or lazy or maybe even spiritually dry, or like you don't have enough discipline. And I'm going to show you that there's a completely different potential root cause underneath. Now, I want to be really clear before we start. We have a sin nature. That's real. Our choices are our responsibility. God sees that. I'm not here to tell you that everything you struggle with is just a biological issue or some chemical imbalance. But what I am here to tell you that there is probably a piece of this story that nobody's ever explained to you. A piece that doesn't let you off the hook, but it does change what you're actually fighting. And that piece is your gut. I know. I know that sounds weird, but stay with me because this is the thing that changed everything for me. I just want to pause for a second. If you have not subscribed, make sure that you subscribe, hit that like button, and hit those notifications because there will be more content like this coming. I have so much more to share with you all, but let's get back to the topic at hand. Okay, so a few years ago, after I started learning about what was going on with my body, like the chronic fight or flight and all of those things that like were plaguing me every day for over a decade, I was led to this site. And there was this doctor, this nutritional biochemist, talking about something I'd never even heard of before, the gut-brain heart axis. And honestly, before that, I actually had zero interest in learning the science stuff. As a matter of fact, I had zero interest in learning the things. Honestly, it was just blah, blah, blah to me. I didn't care how it worked. I just wanted somebody to tell me what to do to fix it. I didn't want to be this way anymore. But as he was talking about how the gut talks to the brain and the brain talks to the gut and how all of this creates dysregulation if it's not working properly, and it can throw your body off and everything off. And it was like something just clicked. And I was like, wait, what? And before that moment, like I said, I didn't want to know why, but suddenly I did. And I needed to know why. I needed to know all of it. And when I started learning it, it was like this whole world opened up to me. Because for the first time, all of the pieces fit together. All those symptoms that seemed so random before, like they had nothing to do with each other, suddenly they all connected. The rage, the anxiety, the exhaustion, the cravings, the way I'd pull away from people. It was actually all one story, not this mishmash, right? And I just had this moment of, yes, that's it. That's what I've been looking for. That's what's wrong with me. Where has this information been all of this time? And that's what I want to give you in this video, that clarity, that moment where suddenly it all makes sense. So let me just real quick give you the basics so you're with me as we go through this. Your gut, your brain, your vagus nerve, your heart, They're not doing their own separate thing. They're actually in a constant conversation with each other, like all the time. They're sending signals back and forth through the nerves, the vagus nerve, through hormones, through all these chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. And the main highway for all of this is called the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain all the way down through your chest and down into your gut. Okay. Now, here's the thing. This totally blew my mind, by the way, when I learned it. Most of us think that the brain is in charge, right? We treat everything as a brain thing. And like the brain sends, we think that the brain sends all of the orders down to the gut, but that's actually not what's happening. About 80 to 90% of the signals running through that vagus nerve, they're going the other direction. They're going up from your gut to your brain. Wait, what? Your gut isn't just taking orders, your gut is sending them. It's producing all these neurotransmitters, these chemical messengers that affect your mood, your motivation, your ability to focus, your impulse control, all of it. About 95%, of your serotonin made in your gut, not in your brain, your gut. About 50% of your dopamine signals also coming from the gut. So, when your gut is healthy and working correctly, your brain is getting the support it needs to regulate all of the other things. But when your gut is struggling, when it's inflamed, when the bacteria are out of balance, when things are just off, everything we're about to talk about becomes so much harder. And that's what I want to show you. Okay, so let's start with anxiety and depression. These are two that affect so many women and get blamed on literally everything else but the gut. Now, here's something I think is really important to understand before we go any further. Not all anxiety and depression are the same. Some of what we experience is more of a state we're navigating. Like it's connected to our circumstances, our stress load, our season of life, what's going on in our bodies. It can shift, it can improve. It responds to the kind of things we're talking about today. And then there's clinical anxiety and clinical depression, where the brain chemistry is significantly and persistently affected in a way that really does need professional support and sometimes medication. That's just real. It's just as valid as everything else, and there's zero shame in that. So, when I talk about the gut connection to anxiety and depression, I'm not saying your experience isn't real or that you just need to fix your gut and everything will be fine. What I'm saying is, for a lot of women, there's a physiological layer that's making an already difficult thing much more difficult. And when that layer, that piece gets addressed, things can shift in ways that you didn't maybe expect. But please, if you are in a dark place right now, work with a professional. That is super, super important. And here's something I really want you to sit with for a second. There are a lot of women who have been given a diagnosis, anxiety, depression, maybe something more, and they're on medication and they're still not getting better, or they're managing but they're not actually well, and nobody has ever asked them about their gut. Because here's the thing. The medical model treats clinical symptoms with clinical tools. That's what it was built to do. So if you walk in presenting with anxiety or depression, you're likely walking out with a prescription. And that prescription might take the edge off. But if what's actually driving those symptoms, or at least making them significantly worse, is a gut that can't produce adequate serotonin, or a nervous system that's stuck in a chronic fight or flight state, or a microbiome that's been disrupted for years, that prescription isn't touching the root. I just want you to think about that for a second, okay? It's like slapping paint on a dilapidated house without fixing the rotten foundation. The house might look pretty on the outside, but it's on the verge of collapse at any moment because you didn't fix the actual problem. And I'm not saying throw your medication away. There's a place for all of that. Please don't do that without working with your doctor. What I'm saying is, if you've been diagnosed and treated and you're still not well, it might be worth asking whether there's more to the story that nobody's looked at. Because for a lot of women, there is. So here's what the gut connection actually looks like with anxiety and depression, specifically. When your gut microbiome is out of balance, when the bacteria are off, when your gut lining is damaged, when there's inflammation, your gut can't produce the serotonin it's supposed to. And low serotonin doesn't just make you sad, it makes you anxious. It makes your threat response super sensitive. It makes you ruminate. Like you can't stop thinking the same worried thought over and over again because your brain isn't getting the chemical signal that says, okay, you can stop now. You're safe. So if you've been doing the work, you've been in therapy, you've been praying, you're on medication, you're doing all the things, and you're still not where you thought you'd be, it might be worth asking whether your gut has ever been part of that conversation. Because the spiritual work, the mental health work, and the physical work, they are not competing with each other. They're actually supposed to work together. And for too many women, that last piece has just never been on the table. Okay, let's move to the next one. This one's super personal for me. Rage and irritability. We talked in the last video about that day my husband was coming home and I was happy, genuinely happy. And the moment his key hit the lock, something just shifted in me. I just got irritated out of nowhere. For years, I blamed myself. I thought it was purely a spiritual problem. Like I don't have enough self-control. I'm not sanctified enough. I'm the problem. And here's what I want to be really honest about, okay? There was a me component. The rage was still sin. I still had to own it. I still had to repent. I still had to ask God to change me and ask my husband for forgiveness. But here's what I also discovered. When your gut is dysregulated and your serotonin is low and your nervous system's already in high alert, your emotional regulation capacity is running on way less support than it needs. The part of your brain that helps you pause before you react, it needs chemical support to work. And when your gut isn't providing that support, that pause just becomes so much harder to find. So the battle's real. The sin nature was real. There was also this physical piece, this component, making that battle so much harder than it needed to be. And when I started to heal physically, that battle, it didn't go away, right? Like there's still this flesh, there's still issues that happen, but it became way more manageable and often not even noticeable in my day to day. And I think understanding all of the pieces is what God actually intended for us all along. We are body, soul, and spirit. He cares about all three. Okay, here's the one that doesn't get talked about enough: poor impulse control and decision making. I mean, have you ever noticed that on your worst days, when your gut's angry, when you're exhausted and inflamed, your decision making like just goes to pot. It just falls all apart. You spend money you didn't plan to spend, you eat things you didn't plan to eat, you say yes when you didn't mean to say, when you meant to say no, you pick a fight that didn't need to happen, you make a choice that in the moment seemed okay, and then later you're like, what was I thinking? And sometimes you even struggle to just even make a decision at all, right? Now, I want to be super careful here because poor choices are still poor choices, right? We're still responsible for what we do, no matter how we feel physically. It's something I've had to teach myself over the years. But here's something that's worth understanding. Dopamine, that's a neurotransmitter. It plays a huge role in your brain's ability to think about consequences, to delay gratification, to choose the long-term good over the short-term relief. When your gut microbiome is off, dopamine signaling gets affected. And when dopamine signaling gets compromised, the ability to pump the brakes becomes genuinely harder. So this doesn't change that we're accountable, right? We already talked about that. But it does help explain why some women find themselves in these cycles that look like a lack of discipline, but actually have a real physiological piece underneath them. Understanding that part of the equation brings so much freedom. It helps us to understand what we're actually dealing with. Okay, next. I have seen and experienced how this next one causes so much shame, and that is our relationship with food. The sugar cravings that just feel completely overwhelming. The comfort eating that you know isn't helping, but you keep going back to it. The inability to stop eating even when you know you've had enough. The truth is, there's always a deeper reason for these behaviors. Emotional eating is real. Using food instead of turning to God, it's real. And if that's part of your story, it's worth looking at with the Lord and addressing with his help. But here's something that most people never hear. Your gut microbiome can actually influence what you crave. Excuse me. Certain bacteria in your gut send signals to your brain saying, feed me. And if your microbiome is out of balance, those bacteria are literally sending hunger signals to your brain that feel like intense cravings. It's not purely a willpower thing, my friend. It's actually microbial signal traveling from your gut to your brain. And on top of that, when serotonin is low, which can happen obviously when your gut's struggling, like we've been saying, your brain knows that sugar gives a fast temporary boost. So it reaches for it like it reaches for anything that promises relief, right? That's the point. We're trying to like protect ourselves, right? Without even realizing it. So this means that for some women, the food battle has a physiological piece that willpower alone was never going to solve. And when we proactively address the gut, that is part of good stewardship of our bodies. Okay, this is a big one for so many of us. Lack of motivation and focus. I know how many of you have looked at your life, at the things you want to do, the person you want to be, the purpose that God's put in you, and felt like you just feel like there's this heavy inability to actually move towards any of it. Like you just can't be who you want to be. And you've wondered if you're lazy or undisciplined or spiritually dry. And maybe there is a spiritual component worth examining because sometimes we're just called to push through in obedience even when we don't feel like it. So that could be a part of it, and we need to be honest about that. Learning to do the hard things and be faithful in the little things, that's biblical, right? But here's what I also want you to consider. Dopamine is what creates the internal feeling of I want to do that. It's what makes putting in the effort feel worth it. It's your motivation molecule. When your gut is compromised and dopamine signaling is affected, that signal gets quiet. You want to want things. You can see that you should move, but there's this wall between knowing and doing that feels like it's made of concrete so you can't go through, but it's also covered with slime so it's hard to get over it, right? And making it feel almost impossible to overcome. That's really worth taking seriously, you guys. When we lack motivation, it's our bodies telling us something is off. And it's an opportunity from God to dig deeper and make changes from a place of wisdom. Okay, this last one broke my heart the most when I finally understood it. The pulling away from people, the canceled plans, the way connection, which part of you desperately wants, feels more than you have to give. It's just more than you have to give. Feeling surrounded by people and completely alone. It's just too much. Now, we talked about how chronic fight or flight makes being with people feel overwhelming and like just breaks you down, right? That's because the gut is directly impacted by the fight or flight, right? Serotonin plays a role in your capacity for empathy, for feeling safe in a relationship, for experiencing connection as nourishing to the soul, right? When serotonin is chronically low from a dysbiotic gut, social interaction can start to feel more costly than rewarding. So you withdraw, you stop engaging because honestly, it's just too hard. It becomes difficult because your body isn't giving you the neurochemical support that makes connection feel sustainable. It's a real thing. And the problem is that isolation, it actually makes everything worse. We know from scripture, Ecclesiastes 4 tells us two are better than one, right? We were designed for community. We regulate each other. And when your gut is working against your ability to experience connection as a safe place for you, it's costing you one of the most healing things God built into your life. And that's a big deal. Okay, so I just walked you through 6 behaviors: rage, anxiety, poor decisions, cravings, low motivation, social withdrawal, that most women chalk up to weak character or a spiritual issue or just being lazy or whatever it might be. And women get told, you need more discipline. You need to pray more. You need to try harder. You just need more willpower. It's just anxiety. Oh, hate that one. Sometimes that's true. Our responsibility before God doesn't disappear because our gut is struggling, right? But what I want you to see is that there's a body piece that's almost never getting talked about. Your gut isn't just a digestive organ. It's producing the neurotransmitters that support your mood, your motivation, your emotional regulation, your ability to connect with people. When it's working well, those things are supported. When it's damaged by stress, by processed food, by antibiotic use, excessive especially, by trauma, by toxins, those battles become so much harder. Not impossible, because all things are possible with God, but for sure harder. And here's what I think is so beautiful about all of this: God designed it all: the vagus nerve, the microbiome, the neurotransmitter production, the gut brain conversation. He built into your system this incredible, into your body, this incredible system where what you eat, how you live, how safe you feel, it all feeds directly into how your brain works and how your whole person navigates the world. It's not an accident. It was designed that way. And when we understand that design, we stop fighting our bodies and start taking care of them with wisdom. So, what do you actually do with this information? I want to give you 3 things to think about this week. Number 1, pay attention to what you're feeding your gut. The bacteria in your gut live and die based on what you eat. Processed food, refined sugars, artificial stuff, all of that stuff, right? They feed the bacteria that create imbalances. And fiber, fermented foods, whole foods, colorful vegetables, these feed the bacteria that support healthy neurotransmitter production. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Just start being more intentional. Your microbiome responds to changes way faster than most people expect. It's really worth it. Number 2, please take stress seriously. There's a reason why they call it the number one, like, unaliver, right? It really impacts your gut. It damages your gut lining. It disrupts the microbiome. It kills off the good bacteria and leads to systemic inflammation. Every time you help your body to regulate your nervous system by lowering stress intake, you're creating better conditions for your gut to do its job. Number 3, consider whether targeted support makes sense for you. I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing anything. I'm only sharing what I've learned along the way. As always, you should check in with your medical practitioner if you need a professional opinion on your health struggles, okay? From my own experience, the supplements that made a real difference for me were specifically targeted at the gut-brain axis, supporting the microbiome, reducing inflammation, regulating cortisol, giving my gut what it needed to produce neurotransmitters. When my gut got the support it needed, the battles we talked about in this video became much more manageable, sometimes almost non-existent. Not because the sin nature disappeared or hard circumstances went away, but because my body was finally in a better position to navigate life, which supported my entire gut brain heart axis, which made everything else just a little bit less of a war, right? I'm going to share more specifically about what helped me in a future video, but I wanted you to know this isn't just theoretical. There are real people, lots of them, with real transformation from taking simple steps to support their bodies at the root. And before I let you go, I want to say something. If you saw yourself today in what I shared, in the rage, the anxiety, the cravings, the withdrawal, the fog, the flatness, right? I want you to hold on to two things as we wrap this up. First, you're responsible for your choices. That doesn't change. God sees your heart. He's faithful to walk with you through every battle, but we still have choices to make about how we will steward our bodies and our lives. And second, you may have been fighting on harder ground than you ever needed to because no one told you about this part of the battle. And that's good news. That offers us hope because wait, there might be some help, right? And now you know. And knowing changes what you can do next. So here's what I want you to do. If you haven't taken the free quiz, go take it now. The link's in the description. It's called Why Do I Feel So Bad When the Doctor Says I'm Fine? It's like 3 minutes, it's free, and it's going to help you kind of understand where you're at in the journey and sort of what are some steps that you can take to get started in the healing journey, right? Instead of being stuck. And I would love it if you would drop a comment below and tell me which of the symptoms that we talked about today kind of surprised you the most. Which one made you think, I had no idea that was connected to my gut? Like, what, tell me what this all meant to you, because that really helps me. I read every single one of your comments, and your answers genuinely help me to know what to cover next. But it also helps the other women who are watching these videos to feel seen and heard and loved and just not alone in this journey. So I would love to hear from you. Make sure you drop that in the comments, and we will see you in the next video.